Every 4 years, the world stops. Everything just halts, right? And this is for the World Cup. This is one of my favorite things ever. This is one of, look, World Cup time is one of my favorite times. One of the best things I enjoy doing. I'm just locked into the World Cup. It's just the best time ever because you come back from work, you come back from wherever you were, or like you just spend the day just watching soccer. That's crazy. Like I can just come back from work and there's a football game going on, and I'm just watching football, bro. I'm watching great players go at it, and it's such an exciting time. And personally for me, like I always, like I say, if the World Cup could be on when it's like holiday season, when I'm on holiday or something like that, that would be perfect. But still, this for any football fan, this is the best time ever. And so today, I wanted to talk about the World Cup. I want to talk about basically some of the main stories that I foresee or coming up in the World Cup. What are the stories in the world? Because there's always a story for every World Cup. There's always something that happens. Look, it's the biggest sporting event in the world. It's one of the biggest events that just happen in just the world, right? And there's always a story. There's always something that you want to talk about. So before that, make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below. What are your thoughts? What is your story of the World Cup? What are you looking forward to the most? Which player are you excited to see? Which teams do you think will do well? Who do you think will win the World Cup? Is there a surprise? All of that, please. Comment down below. Let me know what you think, and also follow us on Instagram and on Facebook at We Talk Football 24. Let's get to it. So, stories of the World Cup. And I wrote down a few things that I wanted to talk about. The first point I wanted to talk about was Spain, but I'm going to start with some players who should stand out. I don't know if they will, but I think these players are under pressure to stand out and to play well. Now, the first one is Lamine Yamal. I think right now he's probably the best player in the world. I'm not saying like it's clear and distinct. 10 years ago, it was pretty easy. It was Ronaldo and Messi, the best players in the world. I'm not saying he's at that level where he's got a clear distance between himself and number two. I think it's between him and Kylian Mbappe. And if you want to say Kylian Mbappe is the best player in the world, I'm not going to fight you very much. But I think, in my opinion, it's Lamine Yamal. I feel like he should have won the Ballon d'Or last season. I don't think Dembele throughout the entire season was better than Lamine Yamal. But I think he should play well. And there's a lot of things, for him going. There's a lot of things that I think he will look forward to. And there's a lot of things that there's a lot of reasons why he will want to play well in this tournament. Firstly, the legacy of his footballing career, right? Like if you win a World Cup, you're such a made man. You are like, you can win the Champions League and be a great player, of course, like an all-time player. But if you win the World Cup, you go into a different stratosphere, especially as one of the main O's of the team, like one of the main guys of the team. You kind of go into a different stratosphere. And if he wins the World Cup, firstly, I think it's probably going to be clear cut, and he's going to be clear as the greatest teenager that football has ever seen. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be the best player of all time, but he has the potential. You could see it. He has the talent. He in his very young career, he has the pulse on the wall to say, look, I've got a Euros already. I've won league titles with Barcelona. I've had standout performances. And so if you're building a case as one of the greatest players of all time, this is how you would dream of beginning your career. And if he adds the World Cup to this, he will be the greatest teen. I already think he's the greatest teenager of all time, in my opinion. I know you can talk about players like Pele when he was a teenager, Neymar, Messi when they were teenagers. I think you could even include Cristiano Ronaldo because I knew him when he was a teenager and he was already starting a key member for Portugal. So you could include, like, you could say he's above those players. In my opinion, I think I know Pele won the World Cup at 16, but he's above Pele because when Brazil won the World Cup the first time in 1954, I think. No. When was the first World Cup for Brazil? I think 1962, if I'm not mistaken. I think 1962. Pele was there and he was outstanding, right? But at that point, he wasn't the best player in the world. He wasn't regarded as the number one player in the world, right? He was playing in Brazil. Anyway, he played in Brazil most of his career. He didn't play in Europe. But right now, like, Lamine Yamal is putting in performances every single time we see him. And it's like, this guy's clear. He's the best player in the world. I don't think at 18 Messi was doing these kind of things. I don't think Ronaldo was doing these kind of things. I forgot about R9. Look, I'm wearing his shirt and I'm like, I forgot him as a teenager. He was outstanding as well. And in my opinion, right, I think he's the best teenager that I've ever seen because of the responsibility that he has, the things that he does for Barcelona, the level he is playing at. I don't think there was a teenager at this point playing at that kind of level. Messi wasn't like this when he was 18. Cristiano, Ronaldo, Neymar, Pele, they were not at this boy's level. If he wins the World Cup, that's what's at stake for him. Greatest teenager of all time. I already think he is anyway. But also just the footballing legacy of Lamine Yamal. You know, like you win a World Cup, you win a Euros. You also bring the second World Cup for Spain. But there is jeopardy with him because he has a hamstring injury and he's not been playing for Barcelona for about over a month now. And so you look at that and you think that's a concern because his comeback isn't. I think they said he might miss the first two games for Spain, and that's a big blow. The World Cup is so big, but also there aren't many games to play for one team. You probably, like, if you play until the final, how many games are you playing? The 3 group stage games, last 16, last 8, semis, and the final. Now I know the World Cup has been expanded, but probably you could play 8 games max with the new kind of World Cup format. And if he misses 2, that's huge, right? So hopefully he's fit and he can play and he can star and he can be awesome because I want to see him be Lamine Yamal. The next one. Now this player, not many people are talking about him in the World Cup. And I think the level that he is at right now, Ousmane Dembele should have a really good World Cup. Look, 4 years ago, he played in the final, right? And he was bad. He was horrendous. He was taken off at halftime because of his performance. And the way he's brought himself back is outstanding. It should be commended, it should be highlighted. He's won a freaking Ballon d'Or, bro. From that moment, from being subbed off in a World Cup final and having maybe the worst performance in a World Cup final by an individual player, to winning the Ballon d'Or, one of the best players in the world, winning back-to-back Champions Leagues. I think more conversations should be had around Ousmane Dembele and his performance going into the World Cup for France. I think I don't know where he's going to play, either as a 9 or on the right. Look, I still think he plays on the right for PSG as well, because that attack is so fluid. Like, sometimes you find Desiree Doué on the left, Kvaratskhelia in the middle, and then Ousmane Dembele on the left, and then it kind of on the right, and then it kind of just switches again, right? But for France, it's a different story because the manager is different, and I'm going to talk about him. The manager is different, and so the system that he might be put in, is it going to be a system that he'll flourish in? Is he going to, score goals? Is he going to create goals for Mbappe or other players? What's his role? And that's a key thing for a player like Ousmane Dembele, where you can see the system at PSG clearly. It suits him. It helps him flourish. It helps him be his best, and I think he should play really well. No one is really talking about Ousmane Dembele, but I think he should be a standout player. The next guy I'm going to talk about, Harry Kane. Harry Kane has had a lot of tournaments where he's projected to be either the player of the tournament. Like, I hear this a lot. In every tournament that England are going into and he's going to be there, it's always Harry Kane will either be the top scorer of the tournament or he will be the Golden Ball winner. And fair to him, I think he was the top scorer of the 2018 World Cup. I'm not so sure about that, but I think he might have been. There is a tournament where he was the top scorer and he played well, but they didn't win, right? And I think he's always been under pressure because he's, number one, he's a world-class player. He's one of the greatest strikers, of our lifetime, maybe ever. But the other thing about him is in tournaments, he plays the same way he does for Bayern and previously for Tottenham. But I think it kind of annoys English fans because he does come back, drop deep, create chances for his other offensive players around him. And I don't know how English fans take that, but they don't seem to like it very much. I guess, number one, because it hasn't proven to win England a tournament, and it's not proven to help him score more goals in these tournaments. And for a player like Harry Kane, I think his performances should level up in these tournaments. It should. I think he should be better. He's such a great player. Like, look at his last 2 seasons at Bayern Munich. He's been a Ballon d'Or contender. He is in the conversations this year again. And I think he should score a lot of goals to help England. If England don't reach the semis, that's a failure. I think it's a failure if they don't reach the final anyway, and they're under massive pressure. Now, what I will say about Harry Kane, I don't think he's a good pressure player. Like, under pressure, I don't think he stands out. Like, there are players who stand out even in moments of pressure. Luis Suarez, Brazil Ronaldo, Cristiano, Messi, Zidane, Angel Di Maria, Didier Drogba. I don't think he rises up to the occasion. And it would be nice to see him do that. I don't know if he will, though. But what I am saying is he should perform for England. Erling Haaland, his first major tournament, one of the best players in the world. We know who he is. And so coming into this tournament for Norway, I think it's an achievement for Norway to just qualify for the World Cup, right? But also, he does have a good team around him. He does have Martin Odegaard going with him into the tournament. So he has someone who's going to create chances for him. It's going to be very interesting to see him in a tournament and how he plays, because we've seen Erling Haaland have these long stretches in seasons, in league seasons, where he doesn't score. And then he'll come back and he'll have this burst of scoring. It actually works like this. He begins the season well and he scores all these goals and he's the greatest player of all time. And then somewhere in the middle of the season, it's quiet and he's a League Two player. And then he comes back again and he scores goals. And so I don't think he can have that kind of thing in a tournament like this, because tournaments are short, they're small. So he has to be on it all the time, from the first game all the way to wherever Norway finishes. He has to be on. And because it's his first major tournament, I think that is huge. It's going to be nice to see him at a World Cup though, and very interesting. Vinicius Jr. is a player that we should be looking at, because he's been one of the best players in the world for seasons on seasons now. But the last 2 seasons, he has been underwhelming. And he performs greatly for Real Madrid. He's performed immensely for them in tournaments in the Champions League. But now this is a different kind of tournament. And there's no nation that puts their superstars under pressure like Brazil, because it's just Brazil. They're probably the greatest footballing nation of all time. You know, certainly in the World Cup, and in terms of national teams, they're probably the greatest, footballing nation of all time. They've produced awesome stars. The greatest players we've ever seen come from Brazil, and we know them. Pele, Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, Neymar, and he is also going to follow in that kind of, lineage. And I mentioned Neymar just now. I think he's injured, and there's questions about whether he's going to be at the World Cup. But if Brazil make the same mistake they did in 2006 and put their hopes on R9, he wasn't the same R9. And they made a huge mistake building the team around him again. And they should have focused on Adriano, who was the younger player at that point in their careers. He was the better player than R9. He was the emerging star. And if Brazil do the same thing and they focus on Neymar more than they should on someone like Vinicius Jr., they'll have a very disappointing World Cup, where they have potential to have a really good World Cup. And I think he should be... Now, me saying he should perform well also depends on what I've just said. Are Brazil going to put onus on him? Now, I think I think the case is a little bit different, because I think Vinicius Jr. is a sure starter for Brazil more than Adriano was for Brazil in 2006. So he'll probably have more chances to show himself more than Adriano in 2006. But he has to perform well. He has to be better than the last 2 seasons. I wanted to talk about Bruno Fernandes, but I don't think he's at the level of the other players that I've just mentioned previously. And he's definitely, in terms of his greatness, only a few people are on the level of the player that I'm going to actually talk about, and that's Cristiano Ronaldo. Can we get one final kind of push? Can we get one big push from one of the greatest football players, one of the greatest athletes the world has ever seen? can we get one more Cristiano Ronaldo tournament? You know what I mean? Like the last few tournaments, I think, have been underwhelming for him. The last World Cup, he scored 1 goal, I think, and there were multiple games where he started on the bench. That's disappointing for a player like Ronaldo. You're not going to start Lionel Messi on the bench. You're not going to start R9 on the bench. I know it's funny because I've just spoken about Ronaldo and I said he shouldn't have been the focus for Brazil in 2006. But Ronaldo is different because he's still fit, he still plays at a high level. He's won his first major trophy in 5 years. I think the last trophy he won was with Juventus in 2021. The Serie A title, and now he's won with Al Nassr. Going into the tournament, I think France have the best squad in the World Cup. I think England are probably second, but you could say it's tied between England and Portugal. And if you want to say Portugal have the third best squad in the tournament, that's still pretty high. Portugal have almost everything they need to go on and contend for the World Cup. They haven't really contended for the World Cup. Not really. I know they finished in the semi-finals in 2006. They had a young Ronaldo and Luis Figo. But I don't think they've really contended, like going into... They haven't reached a final. And even when I think they got to the semi-final with Eusebio, you never felt like they could actually go on and win the World Cup. We've seen Ronaldo do things, and I think he still has it in him. I think he still has something in him to be to take this Portugal team and reach the World Cup final and actually win it. He's still fit. He's still got a leap. He's still fast. He's gonna score goals. He's just gonna score goals. And can he muster up some magic to take this Portugal team over the top? They have fantastic players. Bernardo Silva, Vitinha, João Neves, Bruno Fernandes. That midfield can play against a lot of midfields. Can play against any midfield actually at the World Cup. They have Ruben Diaz at the back. They have great players around. And so if he doesn't win the World Cup now, so the other thing I wanted to talk about, I've kind of spoken about a bit. So that's Spain, and they're second in FIFA World Rankings. I think they could go on and win the World Cup, but that's going to be dependent on Lamine Yamal's injury. He is injured right now. He has got a hamstring injury, and those are very tricky because depending on the grade, right? I think a grade 1 hamstring injury is like 2 to 3 weeks. You're out. And a second grade hamstring injury is like 4 to 6 weeks. Now, if something happens, and I think he's got a grade 2 hamstring injury, and they're probably going to try and, rush him back. He won't have proper World Cup preparation with the rest of the squad, training, playing games. So he's going to be thrown in there. Now, the good thing about this is the Spain team have been playing together for a while now. They won the Euros together, and they do have great players around. I don't think they absolutely need Lamine Yamal to get past the group stages, because they still have Nico Williams, they still have Rodri, they still have Zubimendi, they still have really good players around, and they can still win. They can still win the group games to qualify for the knockouts. Now, in the knockouts, you definitely need to have him back. And with a grade 2 hamstring injury, the kind of thing that he does, the kind of like he plays, he dribbles, he runs around a lot, you need his hamstring to be fully there, or else it's going to come clean off the bone. And that's good. That could be months out. He could have a slow start to next season for Barcelona. So that's something to look out for. Without Lamine Yamal, Spain are not going to win the World Cup. I've had them as my favourites to win the World Cup along with Argentina. If he's not there, Spain have no chance. Obviously, for any team, if you lose your best player, you're not gonna make noise. Unless I think, but probably the one team that I would say, if they lost their best player, could still go far, would be France, because they just have a plethora. Like, they just have stars, bro. They just have stars everywhere, littered. If they lose Kylian Mbappe, I think Dembele can step up. I think Desiree Doué can step up. Barcola can step up, and they still have a mean defense. They have a great midfield. But any other team, if you lose your best player, bro, sorry, that's done. Didier Deschamps. Oh, actually, wait, before I talk about that, let's talk about the best teams at the World Cup and probably who are going to be the favourites. I've already spoken about Spain, and Argentina is my favourites. Argentina basically bringing back the same kind of team they had in 2022 with a few new players here and there. But they still... I actually thought their energy would have petered out by now. I didn't expect Messi to play in this World Cup. I didn't expect Argentina to still have the same core group of players that played in the last World Cup and still be here. I didn't really expect Emi Martinez to still be there, De Paul. I think the one player who's not going to be there, who was a key figure, was Angel Di Maria. But they still have Alexis McAllister. Julian Alvarez is one of the best players in the world. So he's another one I should have included on players who should have good tournaments, because Julian Alvarez is a great player. He scores goals. He's been outstanding for Atletico Madrid for the 2 seasons he's been there. And so the other thing is, Messi is at such an advanced stage. I think Messi's plenty good enough to create chances and to score goals for Argentina. But there is a chance you could see Messi not have a good World Cup. And I think that's perfectly fine. But if Messi doesn't have it in certain games, you need to have Julian Alvarez be at peak form and doing his thing. France has such a mean team, bro. They are great. They have, as I said, Kylian Mbappe, Ousmane Dembele, Desiree Doué, Bradley Barcola, in midfield, Aurélien Tchouameni, Adrien Rabiot. I know Adrien Rabiot is not the best midfielder in the world, but he's decent enough to do a good job in a World Cup. They called up N'Golo Kante, who's always awesome. I think that's probably the weakest part of their team, in my opinion, the midfield. But on defense, they have superstars as well. William Saliba is the best centre-back in the world. And I've been saying this for the past 3 years. He keeps making team of the tournaments, team of the seasons in the Premier League, in the Champions League, in the World Cup, at the Euros. He is, and I think I saw this week, he's the most expensive centre-back in the world, overtaking Virgil van Dijk. I think he overtook Virgil van Dijk a long time ago as the best centre-back in the world. But I guess the market now kind of agrees with what I've been saying. I didn't need William Saliba to be worth over £100 million to be the best centre back in the world. I can see what I know what my eyes are telling me, and they've been saying he's the best centre back in the world. England, it's always coming home. So let's see if it actually will come home this time. I don't believe so. No foreign manager has won the World Cup managing a team they're not born from. And Thomas Tuchel, if you had to pick a manager from a different country to be your national team coach, I don't know if I'd be happy with Thomas Tuchel. Firstly, I don't really rate him that highly. I don't think he's that great a manager anyway. Maybe because he won the Champions League with Chelsea in 2021, which was awesome for them. Of course, you take a Chelsea team that didn't have any chance, any hope of winning the Champions League, and they did against Pep Guardiola's Manchester City, who were a force, right? And so maybe that's the thinking behind England. They do have awesome players from top to bottom. They have great defensive players. They still have Reece James, who I think is the best right back in world football on his day. They do have some great players. I'm not sure if John Stones is going to be fit, but Ezri Konsa is good. Mark Gahey is one of the best centre backs in England. They have Declan Rice and Jude Bellingham in midfield. They have Bukayo Saka offensively. Rashford had a good season at Barcelona, and Harry Kane I spoke about. So they have a really good team. I'm not going to say it's a golden generation. They've been saying that for years now. They didn't win the 2020 Euros. They didn't win the World Cup in 2022. And they didn't do anything at the Euros. Now they're here. Well, they did do something at the Euros. Let me not say that. They got to the final, and they did put up a really good game against Spain in the final. So they did do something. But they always have this golden generation that's supposed to win things and bring it home. And I don't know what's coming home other than, there's nothing that's going home, bro. There's nothing that's going. I'm going home every day after work. I'm going home. That's what England are doing. Just going home after work and not really doing anything at the World Cup. So let's see how that goes for England. I already spoke about Portugal. I think they have the second or third best squad in the World Cup. And so this is a huge chance for them to win a World Cup. I don't think they should be fearing any team going into the World. I don't think they should fear Spain, France, England, Brazil, no one. They shouldn't be fearing no one. They shouldn't be concerned or worried that a team is going to knock them off. Brazil. I spoke about how much pressure Brazilian players always have. And I wanted to talk about this a little bit later, but I'm going to talk about it now. They have Carlo Ancelotti. And I know I just spoke about Thomas Tuchel as a manager, managing a team he's not born from. Carlo Ancelotti is kind of different. I rate him highly. I think he's a top 5 manager of all time. And maybe the biggest reason for that is his tournament football, the way he wins big tournaments. Mainly the Champions League, obviously. You don't win 5 Champions Leagues with 3 different teams and not be an awesome tournament manager. I think he has... How many champions? I think he has 3 Champions Leagues with Real Madrid. He has 2 or 1 managing AC Milan. Yeah. Oh wait, yeah. No, he's won 5 with 2 different teams. Sorry. I said 3. What's the third one I was thinking about? Anyway, my bad. He has 5 with 2 different teams. And he has more Champions Leagues than Sir Alex Ferguson. He has more Champions League winners than Pep Guardiola. So going into this tournament with Brazil, I think this is one of the least spoken about Brazilian teams of all time going into a World Cup. People are talking about Spain and France and Argentina and Portugal. Not many people are talking about Brazil. And look, they still have a really good team. You know, they still have Vinicius Jr. They might have Neymar there. Gabriel is a top 3 centre back in world football. Casemiro just had an awesome season with Manchester United. He's been selected to play for Brazil. Alisson is still an awesome goalkeeper. He can muster something up for Brazil. And if they get on a heater and go, they can go. And I feel like Thomas Tuchel is so much more of a strange pick for England than Carlo Ancelotti is a pick for Brazil. Because in some ways, the way he coaches, his philosophies of letting stars do their thing, like putting in a team together, motivating them. And I don't think he has brilliant tactics, but he has a way of pushing players to win things. And he has a way of dealing with superstars and getting them to play at their best. And so he can do that for Vinicius Jr. He can do that for Neymar if he plays. And he fits more for Brazil than Tuchel does for England, which is strange because I've just said there's no manager who's won a World Cup with a country he was not born in. And so if there was ever a chance for that to change, this would be it. And it would be with Carlo Ancelotti. I think so. Like, I'm not saying he's one of the best managers right now in world football. I think he might be looking at the rear end of his prime as a manager, but he's still pretty good. He's still okay. It wasn't that long when he won the Champions League with Real Madrid, right? That was 2024. That was just 2 years ago. So he still has something in him. Let me talk about a different manager now. A manager born in France, who won the World Cup as a captain, who won the World Cup as a coach in 2018, Didier Deschamps with France. I don't particularly rate him highly. I think he did an awesome job with France, winning the World Cup in 2018. But that was such a different France to what this is right now. There are a lot of things that are similar, but there are things that are not the same. Back then, he didn't have a plethora of awesome offensive players that he could select. He had Kylian Mbappe, he had Antoine Griezmann, who were fantastic in the tournament in 2018. You could have given any one of them the golden ball, right? And I think he set up the team to play and to play well because they didn't have great offensive players. They had Olivier Giroud, but he's not Ousmane Dembele. And they had Blaise Matuidi, but I think offensively Desiree Doué is better than Blaise Matuidi. And so the way he set up that 2018 team fit because of what they had or what they didn't have. But I feel like he's trying to play the same kind of way in 2026 as he did in 2018. And so he has to adjust his philosophies. I think he has to, well, it's too late now, but he has to change how France's attack operates, which is a darn shame because they have great players offensive. I've mentioned them already. And if you're going to play like 2018 France, but you have these jets, these, you have proper offensive players now. You have some of the best players in the world Kylian Mbappe, Dembele, Barcola, Desiree Doué, and you're trying to play the same way you did in 2018, bro. A lot of people have France as their favourites to win the World Cup. I don't think they will. In 2018, I underestimated them. I remember my prediction was Brazil. But and they, I was wrong about that. They won the World Cup. But this time I think I'm right. And I think the one reason they will not win the World Cup is because of their manager. Not so much the players, the manager. I think he is holding them back, and he will be the main reason France don't do well in this tournament. That's something to watch. That is one to watch. I think the defense will be great. I think the midfield will be fine. The attack will struggle. Did you see them in 2024 at the Euros? They were horrible. They were horrible to watch. And I think they got what they earned. They got to the semi-finals in 2024 at the Euros, but they were god awful. Kylian Mbappe didn't look good at all. And I think it's Kylian Mbappe's responsibility, obviously, but a huge part of it is how Didier Deschamps sets them up offensively. They're poor going forward. Watch. Let me see. Mexico versus South Africa, that's a nice kind of story. South African. And that's a memory that before I talk about that, I'll end with that story. Who will go further, Senegal or Morocco? Morocco are currently ranked 8th in world rankings, and Senegal are 14th. They're not that far off from each other, and I'm talking about these teams because this year actually, we saw the AFCON, and the final was so controversial, right? That match in itself was so controversial because of the Senegal players walking off the pitch, them coming back, them actually winning the game in the end. Diaz missing the penalty that could have won Morocco the tournament. He did a Panenka in the final, bro. I can't believe it. You're not Zidane. What are you doing? Anyway, and it was it was already such a fiery situation, and you put hot gas in there, and to think these two teams and the controversies of the past few months, who will go further in the World Cup? I think it's a sneaky little story to look out for. I'm not going to say it's going to be a big story, but I think both nations will have this little rivalry going on, and they'll be looking out for each other. Who's going to finish, further? That will I think both teams will kind of be looking at it and saying, yeah, we finished further, so we are the champions of Africa. Like if Morocco finishes further, I can see them saying, yeah, this is why we're the best team in Africa, because Senegal are out. And I can see Senegal turning around and doing the same thing and say, that's why we won the AFCON. We are the best team in Africa. Now that's going to be dependent on who they face. I mean, let's imagine Morocco face the USA or like a lowly ranked team, not so great team. Let's say they face Japan or they face the USA in the last 16 or the quarterfinal. Let me say the quarterfinals, and they make it forward and they go forward, right? And they win that game, while Senegal have to play France or Spain, and you make an argument based on that. That's going to be, yeah, it's going to be dependent on who they face, how they play, and all that kind of stuff, right? So to close the video, I wanted to talk about the 2010 World Cup and what it meant to me. Like, this is something that I'll always tell people. I went to a World Cup game, and not many people can actually say that. I went to a World Cup game, and we're going to see Mexico versus South Africa again. And it's going to be such a big moment for football because it's like almost like a rematch. That World Cup game was awesome. It was a classic. Firstly, because it was the first World Cup game hosted in Africa, and it was in my country, in my hometown, and I actually went. And the other thing that I always, tell people, and that I'm proud of it, and I actually getting goosebumps right now. I was sitting behind the goal when Simpiwe Shabalala scored that amazing goal. It's one of the greatest goals in World Cup history, and his name is known around the world because of that moment. I was there. I saw it. I went crazy. I had a vuvuzela, and people don't like a vuvuzela. I don't give two fucks, bro. That is something that is in I grew up with that, and I was going crazy. And to see Mexico versus South Africa again, I'm going to be rooting hard. Of course, that's my number one team. I don't think we're going to go that far, but I want us to win against Mexico because they snatched something from us. They snatched that victory, and we were meant to win. I think we played so well. Now, I know Mexico played well in that game too, to be fair. But I want us to win that game. I want my get back. I felt like they took so much from us in that first game. And it's such a story for me because I went to the World Cup, and I could say that for the rest of my life, where, I'm just so lucky to have gone. And I want to shout out my uncle, because he was the one who took me to the World Cup. And I will never forget that moment, and it's because of him, and I want to shout him out and say thank you. We're going into a World Cup. Every time we go into a World Cup, I'll think of that, and I'll always be grateful to my uncle. Thank you. I've not done a video this long in a very long time. Like, when I started this channel, I used to, be long-winded and talk for so long and make videos this long. But I think I had to make a really long video because it's the World Cup. It's the greatest sporting event of all time, and I had so many stories. But let me know if I'm missing a story that you think is going to be a standout in the tournament. Is there something that you're going to be looking forward to? Did I miss anything? Let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, share, follow us on Instagram and on Facebook at We Talk Football 24. World Cup 2026. Let's go! Awareness.